Coming up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, the two Koreas failed to reach an agreement at their first high-level meeting in 7 years. But in a sign of compromise, Pyongyang agrees to next week's inter-Korean family reunions while shortening the event because of joint military drills between South Korea and the U.S. The White House confirms U.S. President Barack Obama will visit Seoul and Tokyo as part of his planned trip to Asia in April. Plus, former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama, who apologized to victims of Japan's past aggressions during his premiership, urges the Abe administration to respect the apology and resolve the military sexual slavery issue with the victims. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yuson in Seoul.
Good to have you with us. I'm Daniel Che, filling in for Mark Broom. Now let's start with the high-level talks between the two Koreas. Hope there might be a breakthrough during discussions were dashed late Wednesday when the two sides decided to call it a night with no substantive agreements after a marathon 14-hour meeting. Arirang
has the details.
After nearly 14 hours of negotiations, South Korean Chief Delegate Kim Kyu-hyun and his North Korean counterpart Won Dong-hyun called it a day without reaching an agreement. South Korea's Unification Ministry said the upcoming family reunions and the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington were the most pressing issues at Wednesday's high-level inter-Korean talks. The Koreas are scheduled to resume reunions for families separated by the Korean War from February 20th to the 25th. For the first time in over 3 years. Pyongyang had threatened to call off the plan if Seoul went ahead with its joint military drills with Washington at the end of this month. At Wednesday's meeting, South Korea stressed the reunion event must be held as planned since it could serve as a first step in improving inter-Korean ties. The North, on the other hand, urged Seoul to postpone the upcoming key resolve and full legal exercises to sometime after the reunions. South Korea did not take the offer, sticking to its principle that humanitarian issues and military drills be dealt with separately. South Korea and the U.S. say the drills are defensive in nature, but the North views them as a practice for war. An official at the Unification Ministry said the family reunions may be put on hold if the North continues to link the event with the military exercises. The two Koreas agreed to hold additional discussions down the road, but did not fix a date. Hwang Arirang News.
And we're getting reports now that during Wednesday's talks, North Korea agreed to the upcoming inter-Korean family reunions from the 20th to the 25th. Pyongyang, however, added it will not take part on the final 2 days of the 6-day event because it overlaps with Seoul's joint military drills with Washington. We'll bring you more details on that as they come in. Earlier today, the South Korean government said Wednesday's talks was an opportunity to clearly explain its principles to the North and to learn a bit more about Pyongyang's intentions. Presidential spokesperson Min Kyung-wook told reporters the South Korean delegation explained President Park's envisioned trust-building process with North Korea, as well as her thoughts on inter-Korean relations. Seoul also got to know how sensitive Pyongyang is when it comes to the South's military drills with the U.S. and South Korean media coverage denouncing the North. However, the spokesperson said the agenda did not include resuming tours to the North's Mount Kumgang resort or lifting South Korean sanctions in response to the North's torpedo attack on a South Korean warship in 2010. U.S. President Barack Obama will be visiting Seoul in a few weeks' time following diplomatic efforts by South Korea to be added to the itinerary. Our Kim Young-gil has the details.
U.S. President Barack Obama has added South Korea to the itinerary for his upcoming trip to Asia. The White House confirmed on Wednesday that the Asia trip is part of Obama's ongoing commitment to increase U.S. diplomatic, economic, and security engagement with countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Although no dates have been released yet, it's reported the president will visit Tokyo first from April 22nd to 23rd, then Seoul from the 23rd to the 24th. During his stay in Seoul, the U.S. president plans to meet with President Park Geun-hye, where they are expected to reaffirm the two sides' alliance, review the security situation on the peninsula, and discuss the Korea-U.S. free trade deal. Now that Seoul is on the itinerary, speculation is rising as to whether President Obama will address the prickly relations between Seoul and Tokyo. A number of disputes over history and territory have chilled relations between the two, especially after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited a shrine honoring convicted war criminals in December. Obama may, however, choose to stay away from arbitrating the complex historical problems and territorial disputes between the two. North Korea's nuclear program will top the agenda when Park and Obama meet, along with the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control of U.S. forces in South Korea from the U.S. to South Korea. The transfer date was originally slated for next year, but South Korea has been pushing for a delay. April will also be a critical time for trade negotiations. Obama is expected to try to push to tie the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement to the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Pact that includes 12 nations, as Korean participation in the partnership could further cement a future trading order in Asia that would include North America. Kim Kyung-wook, Arirang News.
And ahead of President Obama's visit to Korea, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is due to arrive in Seoul on this Thursday for a two-day visit. Kerry, who will be visiting Seoul for the first time in 10 months, will hold talks with his South Korean counterpart Yoon Byung-se, where North Korea issues will likely dominate, especially a day after Seoul and Pyongyang's high-level talks. Assessing the North's recent peace offensive and the possibilities of another provocation, the two ministers will also seek ways to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. And before departing for Beijing Friday, Kerry will also pay a courtesy call to President Park Geun-hye. Visiting former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama, well known for his apology in 1995 to the victims of Japan's wartime atrocities, spoke out Wednesday on relations between Korea and Japan, which have hit rock bottom in recent months. The former leader also urged the Abe administration to respect the 1995 apology. Our Kim Hyun-ji has more.
Korean lawmakers welcomed former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama to the National Assembly on Wednesday, a man they believe presents a way forward in Korea-Japan relations. Murayama took office in 1994 as the first socialist prime minister in nearly 50 years. On August 15, 1995, marking the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, Murayama publicly acknowledged that Japan caused tremendous suffering to the people of many countries, especially in Asia, during times of war. He expressed deep remorse for the victims of his country's past actions. Speaking to Korean lawmakers Wednesday, Murayama said the spirit of the landmark statement led to the Korea-Japan Joint Declaration of 1998, which called on the two countries to forge friendly and cooperative relations entering the 21st century. Saying that this framework triggered friendly bilateral exchanges of people and culture, Murayama urged the current Abe administration to respect the spirit of the Murayama statement.
After my term ended, the Liberal Democratic Party came to power. All LDP administrations adhered to the Murayama statement. Abe's first cabinet also did. Taking office for the second time, Abe told Parliament he would honor the statement, although there have been missteps.
Murayama also acknowledged that Japan's use of women as military sex slaves during war times damaged the dignity of women. Former Japanese Prime Minister Murayama also said the governments of Korea and Japan should begin discussing how to settle historical issues, including the compensation of Korean victims forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. He stressed that the spirit of the Murayama statement will be key to forging friendly relations between the two countries. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
The move to the right in Japan isn't merely confined to the Shinzo Abe administration. A growing number of 20-somethings in the nation identify themselves as ultra-right-wing. Our Park Ji-won reports on a turn to the right.
During the past weekend's election for Tokyo governor, the far-right candidate Toshio Tamogami, a former Air Self-Defense Force chief of staff who wrote a thesis denying Japan's past acts of aggression, finished fourth, earning 12% of all votes. However, in an exit poll conducted by Asahi Shimbun, he garnered 24% of support among voters in their 20s. Regarding remarks made by the new head of Japan's public TV broadcaster NHK, who said the system of sexual slavery was commonplace among countries at war, a survey conducted by Tokyo Shimbun earlier this month showed a greater number of male respondents in their 20s said he's suitable for the post than those who said he's not. A greater number of respondents in their 20s also turned out to be positive about Prime Minister Abe's visit to Yasukuni Shrine than those who are negative. This is according to a survey conducted by Sankei Shimbun last month. These are just some of examples that show a pervasive right-wing trend that is becoming more evident among the youth of Japan. Experts in Japan point out that people in their 20s did not take mandatory history courses during high school and say they're not equipped with the proper knowledge about Japan's past history of aggressions and colonial acts. Some say frustrations with the economic landscape of Japan have made them more dependent on right-wing politicians. It's raising concerns here in Korea that bilateral relations with Japan could take an even greater turn for the worse in the future when this generation of 20-somethings rises to power later on in life. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And back here in Korea, in an effort to reduce private tutoring and make students focus more on student school classes, the Korean government will force universities to give a 0 mark to applications that include awards or certificates received outside of school. These will include TOEFL scores, math and science Olympiad awards, and extracurricular education prizes received at private institutions. In its status report to the president, the Education Ministry also announced plans to lower the importance of English language test scores in the nation's college entrance exams. President Park emphasized the need to devise fundamental measures to reduce the excessive pursuit of English language education. The Bank of Korea has left its key interest rate unchanged at 2.5% for the 9th straight month in February. Following its monthly monetary policy meeting Thursday, the central bank said it expects the local and global economy to stay on a path of moderate recovery. The central bank, however, took note of the financial instability in emerging economies stemming from the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision to scale back its monthly bond buying stimulus program. The nation's inflation rate ran below the central bank's target band for the 20th straight month in January, standing at 1.1%.
2013 has been a great year for Korea's motor industry, but unfortunately, same can be said for some of Korea's largest listed firms. A new report from the Federation of Korean Industry show the companies suffered bigger growth setbacks last year than they did in 2009, the year after the onset of the global financial crisis. The Federation says sales growth numbers for almost 150 large listed companies were poorer compared to those for the 1,500 or so non-financial sector business traded on the country's stock markets. The report found that well over a third of the companies couldn't even pay back the interest on their debts due to slumping profits. An official from the Federation says a recovery is unlikely this year due to global uncertainty in emerging markets and weak domestic demand. One of the biggest and most recognizable tech companies in the world is gearing up to make a huge investment in Korea. Microsoft says it plans to build a massive $9 billion data center somewhere in the country, but it hasn't decided on a location yet. Yurian reports.
Microsoft's plans to build a data center in Korea would make it by far the largest investment ever made in Korea by a global technology firm. Microsoft Korea said on Wednesday that its head office will build a data center on 330,000 square meters of land. While the exact amount is yet to be decided, Microsoft is looking to invest over 10 trillion won, or roughly $9.4 billion into the project. Considering the scale of the project and the investment, Microsoft's data center could be the largest of its kind in all of Asia. It will be twice as big as the data center Google says it plans to build in Taiwan. The data center will also serve as a facility to provide a backup service for data flowing in from Asia and other parts of the world. A delegation from Microsoft has reportedly already visited Korea to look at possible sites, with the southernmost port city of Busan rising as a strong candidate. Microsoft is believed to have chosen Korea for its data center as the country holds excellent maintenance and repair manpower, is less prone to natural disasters, and has cheap electricity. Yurian, Arirang News.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. NEWSLINE at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
U.S. Congress has approved legislation to extend the government's borrowing authority for another year. The Senate approval Wednesday came after a dramatic procedural vote, with several Republicans changing their votes to join the Democrats to advance the measure. The bill passed the Senate with a final vote of 55 to 43. This came a day after the House of Representatives passed the bill, mainly with Democratic votes. The bill now goes to President Barack Obama for his signature. The bill will suspend the limit on borrowing through March of 2015. China's first lunar rover appears to have come back to life after it stopped functioning last month, but its fate is still uncertain. The China News Service said Wednesday that the mechanical problems that have dogged the rover since late January could not be fixed. Today, however, Xinhua News Agency quoted a source from the country's lunar probe program who said the vehicle stands a chance of being saved as it is still alive. The Jade Rabbit landed on the moon in December, carrying China's hopes for its space technology future. China is the third country to land an unmanned rover on the moon. The rover was supposed to advance the country's space program, which includes a permanent orbiting station and human exploration of the moon.
Now, if you're a fan of classic American sports cars, you might want to avert your eyes when this next video comes on, as a huge sinkhole has swallowed 8 collector Corvettes that were on display at a museum in the U.S. state of Kentucky. The 12-meter wide and 9-meter deep sinkhole opened up at the National Corvette Museum in the city of Bowling Green early Wednesday morning local time. Of the cars gobbled up by the giant sinkhole, 6 were donated by Corvette enthusiasts and 2 were on loan from General Motors. Museum officials say there were no injuries, and the process of removing the cars has already started. Now, we are approaching the midway point of the Sochi Winter Olympics, and hundreds of millions of people around the world are tuning in to watch the games on television or online. To make it even easier for Korean fans, local tech firms have developed smartphone apps so fans can be up to date on all the latest results anytime, anywhere. Our Paul Yi has more.
Whether it's catching a glimpse of figure skating star Kim Yeon-ah or speed skating legend Lee Sung-hwa, watching Team Korea compete on the ice is a must-see experience for fans here at home and abroad. To ensure fans never miss a single Olympic event, local web portal firms have released their own mobile applications to celebrate the Winter Games. Designed for smartphones and tablet PCs, the special apps offer video on demand and real-time streaming services of the races and events. Many users say the services are convenient to use whenever or wherever they want to catch up on the latest highlights.
Even though the events I'm interested in take place at night, I'm still able to watch them on my mobile. I also leave supportive comments and view information on the athletes.
Korea's internet-based television or IPTV industry has also jumped on board. The mobile IPTV apps are now available to give users unlimited access to high-definition broadcasts of the games.
At the Sochi Olympics and other national events, it's important for Koreans to collectively cheer on and support our national athletes. That's why we're offering data and content usage relating to the Sochi Olympics free of charge.
With the proliferation of smartphones, it's never been easier to watch your favorite athletes take on the world and hopefully rise to the top of the podium. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday to you all as we kick off our Sochi coverage with Motaebom's quest for a medal during the 1,000-meter men's speed skating event. And despite putting in all he can, he fell short, finishing in 12th place overall. And despite an amazing start to his race, stamina once again proves to be the problem for the men's speed skaters as he finishes with a final time of 1 minute 9.37 seconds, good for 12th overall. Meanwhile, the Netherlands add 2 more medals in the sport as Stefan Gruthus grabs the 1,000-meter gold, followed by Canada's Denny Morrison in second, and 500-meter gold medalist Mitchell Mulder finishing off with a bronze medal in the event. And moving over to women's curling, where despite a hard-fought match, the Korean women's curling team fell just short against the world-ranked #1 Sweden on Wednesday. Now, during the round-robin session 4, Korea took an early lead after the third end and looked pretty good. But in the fifth end, Sweden proves why they're the #1 nation in women's curling as they managed to score 3 points and never looked back after that. Now, Korea will lose to Sweden with a final score of 7-4 as they're set to face off against Russia during their round-robin session 6. And moving over to pairs figure skating as Russia proves to be a powerhouse in the sport as 2 Russian pairs finished with a gold and silver earlier today. Now, first off, the heavy favorites in the event, Tatiana Volosazar and Maxim Trankov, shines during the free skating program, scoring 152.69 after posting a 84.17 the day before, as they take the gold medal with a combined score of 236.86. Now, meanwhile, another Russian pair, Ksenia Stolbova and Fyodor Klimov, finished with a silver medal in the event after coming in second with 218.68. Now, history was made on day 5 of Sochi Winter Games when a double gold was issued after 2 skiers both finished first during women's downhill. And for the first time in 78 years of Olympics in alpine skiing, 2 downhill skiers, Tina Mays of Slovenia and Dominique Gissen of Switzerland, both finished tied for first with a time of 1 minute 41.57 seconds. Despite the event missing the defending champion Lindsey Vonn, the double gold brought excitement to the fans who watched history being made. And for all of you guys following the South Korean Olympians in Sochi, let's take a look at a couple of events to look forward to in day 6 of the Sochi Winter Games. Now, first off, 3 Korean short track stars will be competing during the women's 500-meter short track event as Shim Seok-ki, Park Seung-hee, and also Kim Ah-rang looking to win Korea's first medal in the short track event. Meanwhile, Lee Sang-hwa, who won the women's 500-meter speed skating gold, will try to add another medal as she's set to compete in the women's 1,000-meter speed skating event, as Kim Hyun-young is also set to compete in the event as well. And finishing things off, let's take a look at the medal count after 5 days of competition at the Sochi Winter Games. Of course, taking a look at a chart here, we see that Germany's up at the top now as they now have 6 gold medals, 1 silver and 1 bronze for a total of 8. Meanwhile, Canada in second with the Netherlands in 4th place thanks to all their medals in speed skating. And with Korea failing to win their second medal, they're tied for 11th with just 1 gold medal. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to get an update on the weather with our Lee Ji-yeon at the Weather Center. Hello there, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon. Well, today will be slightly milder than it was yesterday, but it will also be cloudier with mostly to partly cloudy skies throughout the day. And the heavy snowfall that's been blanketing parts of Gangwon-do will finally let up late in the afternoon, but it will snow again tomorrow morning. Now, as you probably know, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and if you have big plans for the day, the weather will be fairly nice. It will be sunny and mild, and it will continue to be pretty nice throughout the weekend. And in Sochi, which is hosting the Winter Games, we'll have a mostly sunny and warm day with a high of 17 degrees Celsius. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for Korea. The afternoon high in Seoul will get up to 5. Daegu and Gwangju will see a high of 6 and 9, while Busan will top out at 7 this afternoon. Now for other regions, it looks like Jeju will climb up to 9, Daejeon will rise to 7, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at -8. Now that's all for me today, and let's send it back to Daniel and Yusan in the studio.
Well, thank you for that, Jian. And those are the stories we're following at this hour. Thank you for watching.
Join us again tomorrow for Newsline at noon.